Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to robmotivejt. Out here cruising around in the Jeep Gladiator. It's actually morning for me. I say good afternoon because that's when you're going to see this video. But I chose to come out early this morning. It's 8:59. It's not that early. But anyway, it's 86 degrees here at 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's a better time to come out because it's not so stinking hot as it has been. We're supposed to be over 100 here today. But as I'm out cruising around in the Jeep Gladiator, a couple of things have come to mind. You know, on one of my other channels, Mod Driven, I have a Honda Civic. It is a manual transmission. And I love having a manual transmission. I learned how to drive on a manual transmission. And I do enjoy running through the gears, you know. But that car is going to be going soon. I'm bringing something else to that channel. So I'm not going to have a manual transmission anymore. And I got to thinking, you know, with the Jeep Gladiator, people have asked me, well, when are you going to trade it out? They know how nuts I am and that I can't manage to hold on to a vehicle for more than, you know, a year. I think I've had this one the longest of any in my, my stable here recently. But there is one that I would consider, and that is the manual transmission. You know, I had a manual transmission. It was a 2020 Toyota Tacoma, and I was very disappointed with that manual. It felt archaic to me, dated, notchy, clunky, just old. I didn't like it too much. Still loved going through the gears, but it could have been much, much better. So I'm thinking, gee, maybe I ought to be considering a manual Jeep Gladiator. Certainly Jeep, Stellantis, Mopar, whoever they are now, has done a better job at modernizing the manual transmission. They're still not using a manual like Toyota was, or maybe still is. Toyota is going to still have a manual, by the way, with this redesigned or new generation Tacoma. I am curious to see or hear if Toyota updates the manual or if it's just the same clunky thing that they had in the previous generation. But anyway, I've been considering that maybe I ought to try out a manual transmission Jeep Gladiator. It's got to be better. It's got to be better than what Toyota's is, I would think. So that is, other than the two-door Jeep, the Jeep Gladiator two-door, or I doubt it will be a Gladiator the more I think about it. I've been calling it that, a two-door Gladiator, in a lot of recent videos. But the more I think about it, it's probably not going to be a two-door Jeep Gladiator. It's probably going to be just a two-door Jeep truck. And it'll be interesting to see if Jeep goes with that name, if they just call it the Jeep truck. I think they should. A nice rugged name for an awesomely rugged product, the two-door Jeep truck. Offer it not only in two doors, but in an automatic and a manual transmission. Keep the V6 in it. Let's not go to a four-cylinder turbo. And maybe even put out a couple of special editions, you know, a 392, maybe even a bigger engine. Who knows? You know, Jeep Mopar likes to do that. Of course, it would probably be cost prohibitive. It would probably be $80,000. I mean, who knows? But nonetheless, it is another avenue for Jeep to take to make a little bit more money, right? So I'm considering that. I really wish that I could go drive one somewhere. The problem is nobody has them. Nothing's in stock right now. And if a dealer is going to keep something in stock, it's not going to be a manual transmission because there's simply not as much demand for them. I mean, let's be honest here. Only about 4 to 6%, depending on who you listen to and what brand you're talking about, are actually manual transmissions produced by the manufacturers. And that's simply because they just don't sell. The people don't want them. Nobody's buying them. When I say nobody, I mean not in the numbers that the manufacturers can sell automatics in. So we shall see. Next up, I wanted to talk a little bit about the transmission in this truck. You know, I've been getting some weird things going on. Speaking of transmissions, right? Maybe this is what kicked it off in my mind to maybe try out a manual. But the other day, I got in the truck. There's two things that have happened. I got in the truck, I started it up, and I'm in park. And it kind of lurched forward just a little bit. I could feel it in the seat. You could probably see the truck actually move. And I thought, that's odd. It's like the transmission, was in between park and drive when I stopped it, when I shut it off. It was really a weird feeling. It's the first time I've experienced that in the Jeep Gladiator. But there's another thing that I've been noticing lately, and maybe it's because of the heat, humidity here. I mean, it shouldn't be, but nonetheless, it's been very hot, very humid. But I've noticed in driving down the road, it seems to be shifting differently. It seems to be delayed. It's like there's a long pause, or a longer pause, if you will, between shifts. I find that as I'm driving, paying attention to the truck, or even not paying so much attention to the truck, I start to wonder when it's going to shift, why it hasn't shifted yet. It's like something's off, like the timing of the shifts are off. The only thing that I can attribute that to is, it's all electronic, right? That maybe something has happened in the programming, that something has changed. These programs, computer programs, they run over and over and over and over. And if there's any kind of weirdness in the coding, it can cause eventually, after a billion runs of that program, because it's running constantly while you're driving, right? That something could happen, that maybe there's a glitch in the program, and after a while, it just kind of loses its mind. It gets a little senile as it ages, right? Who knows? Now, I do think there is a way to maybe fix that, and that would be to reset the truck. And to reset the truck, you simply disconnect the battery. Let everything shut down, let it go back to factory settings, right? Maybe that would solve the issue, and if indeed there is some sort of a weird little glitch, and it's nothing, that's profoundly bad. I mean, it's not like it doesn't shift at all. It just feels like it's running too long in between gears. I don't know. So I may try that. I may go ahead if it continues, if I continue to notice it, and just connect the battery and in essence do a hard reset. I mean, it is a computer system, right? And see if that changes anything in the truck. Who knows? Maybe that'll even get rid of that little vibration issue that I'm still experiencing in the truck. It is back. It's been about 3 months or so, something like that, since I put the fuel injector cleaner in. By the way, I do want to mention one more time, somebody made a comment on the channel that, well, it's because you don't drive it very often. It sits there, the gas gets older, maybe it's clogging things up. I drive it as often, actually more, than I drive my other two vehicles, the Tacoma and the Honda Civic, and they don't do that. So to me, it's not because of it not being driven frequently. It gets driven the most of any of my vehicles, and they don't do that. What I believe is that the Jeep is using a narrower injector, and that the tube or needle, for lack of a better description, gets clogged easier. So you have to put something in it if you're not driving the truck hard, meaning running it on the freeways at higher speeds, or maybe driving it even more frequently to keep those injector jets. That's what I was trying to think of, to keep the jets cleaned out. Who knows? Just a theory of mine, and I have heard that in a few videos on the web. Anyway, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you have a manual transmission Jeep? Do you like it? Is it modern, or is it old and clunky feeling like the Toyota Tacoma? I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.